Welcome to the Hoof and Fang podcast. I'm Kirt Maz.
And I'm Maz Maddox.
Oh, what's new?
Oh, man. So much. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
Yes. So I finished the Baha and Jackson story. Done. Mm-hmm. It's loaded and with the betas right now. And somebody's going to proofread it to make sure my grammar isn't terrible. And she's got her work cut out for her.
How to fix it.
Yeah, to fix it.
Yeah.
And then, so that one's in the can. I've got some great beta feedback from Save the Vampire, which is awesome. It's because I got a new beta this time around. It was a reader who reached out who wanted to beta. And it's always like kind of hit or miss on if somebody's actually a really good beta or if they're just like thumbs up. And I'm like, that's not helpful.
Right.
She sent back a whole document of notes. So actually when I opened it, I kind of panicked because I was like, oh my God, do I need to walk this back, cancel the date? What's going on?
Right.
And it was actually really helpful and stuff that I could use to like elevate the work without having to like
start from
scratch.
scratch.
It's not a start from scratch. It was a lot of just really helpful tips.
Great.
So I was like, hell yeah, what a great get. Like a new beta who's very like understands my writing, had great feedback. I got that last night and was like, oh, this is so cool. So that's what I'm going to be doing this week is like going through her notes and like just adding what she recommended. And I officially started Ruben and Zhang's draft. I talked to Jess and like got a rough outline so I can at least start it and kind of feel out what I want to do. So right now everything's going really great writing wise. Like I'm getting shit done, crossing things off the list. Like hell yeah, I'm totally jazzed. I love it.
Knocking on wood.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that.
Yes.
Yeah. But what about you? How's your week?
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Continuing my, I don't know, just recording my contemporary romances.
Fun.
Yeah, for the purposes of this podcast, I don't have much to update because it's just my usual day-to-day and doing my best to stay on track, even with the distraction of the musical in the evenings. That it took a little bit last week to kind of get back into the swing of like having something to do at night every night.
Yeah.
Not my favorite thing.
No.
Like I don't love having something to do every night during the week. But there's really no other way to do it. So yeah, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I started a new thing with a couple narrator friends where we're like just logging into a Zoom room and like we're just there.
Yeah.
And we're not like we're muted, we're not talking, but like when you're there, your camera's on and it's just like so it's like a virtual co-working space.
Oh, that's
it's
kind of
just
cool.
like somebody else is there doing the same thing we're doing. And it's just like, you would feel guilty like going and watching a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Because like somebody's there.
Like an accountability thing?
And could like check in on you and, you know.
Be like, hey, I've noticed you've been not in the booth.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of awesome.
Right. So that's been kind of fun and helpful.
Yeah.
And even on days where like nobody else shows up, like they might at any minute.
For sure.
And so it helps just kind of keep the brain focused. And I've been doing a lot of work for Podium. And one thing they give me that's been helpful is they give me a chapter word count. Like by chapter, there's a word count.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to do the math on like how many words is, if I want to finish the book in 3 days, how many words is a third of this book?
Yeah.
And like, what chapter do I stop on each day? And it's like, okay, this is a reasonable amount of chapters. And for some reason, having that all figured out in advance helps with the starting, because you have an ending point. Instead of just, I'll get in the booth and I'll go for as long as I can and I'll try to get as much done as I can. It's like, well, that's so nebulous and it feels like there isn't a stopping point. And I think that's part of where my brain just gives up.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And so it's like, all right, this is something I'll probably have to do for myself in the future when I'm not doing a Podium project.
Yeah.
Is like, get the word count for each chapter, figure out how much I have to do to fit it into the amount of days I've allotted, and then just get that done.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That would be, I can see where that would be helpful. Cause I think I'm like that with certain things. Like if I know where the goalpost is, I'm more willing to kind of push through that last little leg and be like, okay, done. I can check that off.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. And so that's So those are just some new tactics I'm trying in the booth to try to just keep focused and like treat this like a job and really get it done.
I love the digital or the virtual coworker thing. That's so cool.
I totally stole that idea from some other friends who were doing it. And I was like, you invite me?
Yeah, I can sit in the virtual space.
I go get other people.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I was like, reached out to some other people and was like, do you want to do this? Because we're not invited to the other one.
Oh, well, okay.
So let's make our own.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was... So it's just work at this point. Nothing really too exciting to share on our podcast about speculative fiction.
Well, I mean, but it's so cool. The back end stuff. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm a nerd because I'm like, that's interesting. I like that. So it's cool.
Yeah. And it certainly has been helping me get things done in a more reasonable amount of time, which means I have a little bit of a buffer then between finishing work in the afternoon and having to be at the theater in the evening.
Yeah.
So I don't feel quite as overwhelmed. And the cast is doing such a great job.
Great.
At the theater that the stress could be so much worse. But they're doing well.
Great.
So
that's awesome.
I have less to worry about each day as they continue showing up and doing the work. So.
Sweet. Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, but that's what's going on with me. And we had the long weekend this weekend. If you were in the States, you had Labor Day.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of stuff for the show. I did like prop shopping and I went in and I helped paint, but also we took the dogs to the beach.
Yay.
They went swimming. Well, Bodhi went swimming. Apollo barked at him from the shore.
As
we
is his
visited,
job.
we visited my parents. We went down to Sheboygan, visited some friends.
Yeah.
So it was also
Sweet.
like social things happened this weekend that were both fun and also exhausting.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you should have a pass to get out of social stuff at this point because you've had to travel so much for social stuff. You should just have a card that you're like, no, this has been punched. Like, cash in.
Right. Yeah. And that was, I mean, I still feel like I'm finding my footing coming back from the cruise because it was like, I did have a normal week last week, but then we had the 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so then immediately shit is weird again. So, and you know how easily I get thrown if shit is weird. Even the fact that we're doing this, it's like, isn't it Monday?
Yeah, no,
like, why are we recording today? Now it's Monday.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's not Monday.
Yeah,
So.
this whole day has been a mind fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I think the schedule's messed up. I'm behind. I feel like I'm behind on everything. Like, yeah, I'm glad I had the day off, but today me is not having a great day.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So, yeah. But speaking of things that happen on Tuesdays, every Tuesday we have a new episode of Two Who Live On, who comes out from Hoof and Fang Audio. So this past week it was episode 7, the penultimate episode, a big one.
Yes, man, that one was a doozy.
Lots of action.
Yeah.
And then we wrap things up next week with episode 8. And then we'll be moving on to our next Hoof and Fang Audio pick, which we are now ready and able to announce.
Yes.
Is going to be Far From Neverland by River Hale.
This one's going to be quite the change.
Yeah.
Totally different tone than
very different. Yeah. This is our first kind of like dipping our toes in the water of some dark romance.
Yes. Yeah.
Darker.
Yeah, darker.
Darker, not, I mean, I've heard of things that are truly dark. This is not that. It's a retelling of Peter Pan, for Christ's sake.
Exactly.
But it definitely has some darker themes. But yeah, so it's cool new author. We haven't had a chance to work with them before, so the 2-sentence description, as it were, is: the old Peter Pan has died, and a new one's risen from his ashes. He's a star, Neverland's son, and I don't care if I get burned. I
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to not be like, okay.
Right? Queer romance from Captain Hook's perspective.
Fuck yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
All right. So yeah, so that will start, I think it's smart of us. We did this last time by accident. We're going to do it on purpose this time.
Right.
We're going to take a week off in between.
Yeah.
So we will have the final episode of Two Who Live On next week, and then the following week we'll take off, and then after that will come the first episode of Far From Neverland.
Exciting.
So coming your way in this fall.
Yes.
Yeah. So, also, I don't think we talked about this, but like, we had an anniversary.
Oh my God,
recently.
we did. We are real bad at this.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think it was the middle of August was was technically our anniversary. So now that we're in September, we can say we've been on the air for over a year.
How exciting!
Yeah. So
happy anniversary, Hoof and Fang.
Happy anniversary! Yay!
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's we've been doing this for a year.
Yeah.
Does it feel like it?
It doesn't to me.
Okay.
Does it for you? I guess you record a bunch of audiobooks. So.
I would say 2, maybe 2 or 3 years. Like it's only been a year? No.
Like, oh, it's a breeze. It's been so fun. You're like, really? Love that for you.
No, I was surprised that it had only been a year.
Really?
And you're like, it's been a whole year?
Man, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Different perspectives. Yes.
That's
funny. Other things happening in the Patreon. Next week, we will be reviewing the 4th and final Megamorphs book in the Animorphs series called Back to Before. Those always come out on Wednesdays. And then your work in progress chapters from Save the Vampire come out every Friday, although we can expect some serious revisions thanks to our new beta reader.
Yes. So what they're getting is going to be the raw stuff. So it will be changing based on her notes, which is cool. Yeah, it's just so cool. I love that.
What a great opportunity to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, exactly.
As it were. And then I think I saw that the Relic short story is coming out September 20th.
Yes. Yeah.
So
should be done and ready to go by then.
And that will be available for all members at the Dear Reader level. And then we are also approaching the 1-year anniversary of our very first audiobook.
Yeah.
Which was Gardens and Ghosts by Maz Maddox.
Right.
And so in anticipation of that leaving our store and going into the wider market, we are doing an audiobook sale for that book. A pretty damn good sale.
Yeah, I would say so.
50% off.
Yes.
Until the end of September.
Yes. So if you want to snag it on sale, and also this is also the best way to support us. So like, because when it goes into Audible and Libro and stuff, they take a portion of it. Yeah. We get 100% of it right now. So this is the time to snag it. But if you want to wait till it goes wide, that's also great. But it's way cheaper and better for us if you snag it now. Right. So do that.
Eventually, some amount of money finds its way back to us the other ways.
Exactly.
But this way, it comes directly to us.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, watch for details of that sale. If you are not signed up for our Patreon, make sure you're signed up for that, even at the free level. Yeah. And we'll make sure you know how to get that audiobook for 50% off.
Indeed.
Yes. So, we have been recapping that Animorph series now for a year.
Yeah. A full year.
A full year. We have done 40 of the regular books, 3 Megamorphs, 3 Chronicles. We've talked a lot of Animorphs. Yeah. The series goes on and on.
It really does.
On. In retrospect, I feel like I was so close to finishing the series, but I think actually maybe I only got like 15, 20 books in.
Yeah.
Because for a long time I've been like, I don't remember any of this.
Right.
I can't believe this series went on as long as it did.
Yeah.
And admittedly, if you're listeners of the Animorphs episode in our Patreon, you know that there have been some ups and downs for this series.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair assumption or assessment rather.
Yeah. So I thought we would discuss series, book series.
Yeah. Okay.
What we like, what we don't like, and how we each approach them in our individual work.
Cool.
So first of all, just in general, like what do you think makes for an effective series of books?
I would say I'm such a character-driven person, both in how I write and like what I prefer to consume. So if it's a character that I just don't want to let go of, I will honestly read about them going to the bank. You know what I mean? Like I just feel like I can just kind of watch them do whatever, as long as they are just interesting or captivating in some way. So for me, like with the Animorphs, these kids, I'm like fully invested in. Like I think by like the 5th book, I was like, oh, I love all these kids now. So I don't mind reading a gazillion books about them because I legitimately just want to hang out with them all the time. So I think it's kind of, I feel like that's my center of gravity when it comes to series. Like if the characters are amazing, for me, they could literally be doing anything and I don't care. I just want to be with them and want to see what they do. What about you?
I I will stick by a series if I really like the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not a book example, but like, I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
And it's about to start season 21.
That's crazy.
I probably haven't really loved the show since like season 8 or 9. You know,
That's
but like,
fair.
I'm in it. I'm with these people.
Yeah.
I'll keep coming back year after year. But I would not have been sad if it would have ended quite some time ago.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's sort of how I feel about the Animorph series at this point. Like, yes, I'm invested in the characters, but it feels like they are not getting the benefit of a really intentional story. And that's where I think a really effective series has to be telling a compelling story. And that can certainly happen in seasons.
Yeah.
You know, like you can wrap up an arc in 3 books and then do like another 3 or 4 book arc where like the same characters are just on a sort of new adventure. Like you can certainly continue to have and tell compelling stories, but like I've also seen too many examples of it's just like, this is popular, so let's keep cranking it out.
Oh, big time.
And then, I mean, and Animorphs is a prime example of how this happens. Is like, how many books have we read in that series now where by the end of the book, they've undone everything that happened in the whole book?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's purely filler. And so that's where I just think a really good series has to finish a story or tell a great story.
Yeah.
It's not enough to love the characters.
That's fair.
You got to want to push on.
Yeah.
And actually tell another story with those great characters. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, as much as I bitch about the crappy books, I guess I just keep hoping the next one's going to be like the one that I'm like, hell yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we can get behind that. Cause yeah, if they're just undoing everything that they just did or undermining their own lore.
Well, and a couple of those here or there.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
You know?
Yeah.
And especially if even the world gets reset, but like the characters remember what happened and there were lessons learned.
Yeah, that's great.
But how many times in that series
was that not the case?
It's like they literally just undid it and they didn't even learn anything from it.
Yeah.
You know?
Or like, I think my favorite one, and I don't mean to turn this into an Animorphs episode, but like I think the last one we watched where they were literally saved by a seagull that just happened to like fly by and save their ass. And I was like, oh no, like that was so bad. So well,
and that sort of segues to me into my next question, which is what can kill an otherwise great series? And I'm going to use Animorphs as an example again, although I know it's not the only one that does this or has done this. And to me, it's when it becomes so popular that they just start putting the books out and they don't even have the original author writing the books anymore.
Yeah.
Ghostwriters. I'm not dissing ghostwriters across the board. I think ghostwriting is a great profession and some people are excellent at it. And I certainly see the need for them at times.
Yeah.
Oh boy. The issue we're having with our beloved series is that it's just there's a different ghostwriter almost every book.
Yeah.
And it is just so inconsistent as to how well some of them work within the established world within the series. And so I just think a killer for an otherwise great series can be just bringing in too many voices, too many other creative types.
Yeah.
And just smashing them in there for the sake of getting a book onto shelves that can be purchased for X number of dollars.
Yeah. No, that's I think this is the only series I've seen do that, just because I don't think I've ever delved into a series this long before and that was this popular. So I would imagine, it has to happen to other things. But yeah, for sure, trying to pump out content as fast as possible, that's when things are just going to turn into garbage. Like if you're trying to come out with a book every 3 months or whatever this series was doing, it's going to just
every month.
Was it every month?
And they're short books. So
that's true. But if you're cranking out stuff just for the sake of beating the algorithm or trying to just get books on shelves, it's going to turn into garbage.
Yeah.
Or if somebody caves to reader expectation and pressure, like if I haven't absorbed anything myself that happened to that besides I have some opinions on Our Flag Means Death season 2, but we won't get into that. But like, you can kind of tell sometimes when somebody pays a little bit too much attention to what people are anticipating. And instead of making sure you're staying true to the story, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that was my plan all along. You're like, no, because this feels like you totally took a left turn with this or something. So I think that can kill a series too. We just have, like, authors have to be mindful to stay true with what your vision is and let people speculate and be excited. Even if that's not what's going to happen, it's okay to not hit those goalposts that other people have made up.
Or to even go in another direction if too many people are inside your head about it.
Right.
Like, give them something different. Well, and I mean, talk about a series killer. Like, apparently having your series turned into an HBO show before you're done writing it can just kill a series.
Oh, God.
So almost like becoming too popular can sometimes that really hurt it.
I think that's one of those like repressed things, because A Song of Ice and Fire was my series. Like, I was on George R.R. Martin's live journal when he was picking the cast for the show.
Oh, wow.
I was like that deep of a nerd about that.
I did not know that.
Dude, it was a thing. So me and Jess got into it, oh my God, like 2008 or something. She gave me a beat up old paperback. Nobody had heard of this series before. And we got deep into it and started like following Martin on LiveJournal when he talked about like maybe getting a show picked up by HBO. We were talking about it. When the series started, we had a huge watch party with mead and costumes and we were so excited. Dude, we were such nerds about it. She ended up getting me Jon Snow's sword before it was like a commercially available thing. There was one dude who sold replicas on the internet that George Martin blessed and signed, and she bought me one for Christmas for like $100 because nobody knew what this fucking series was.
Sure.
So when that caved in and like the book stopped, the series went to shit, Martin's not going to finish it. Heartbreak. I could not wait for the end of that series, and it's never going to happen now. It's just gone.
Really? We think it's just done?
God, no, he's not going to finish it. Not after, like, no matter what he puts out at this point, it's going to be panned, right? Like, it's...
Yeah, but people will still buy it, and I bet his publisher wants those dollars.
For sure. I bet he's got more money than he'll ever need at this point.
Well, he does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. I'm sure the publishers are like, oh my God. But yeah, at this point, the weight of expectation of that series, it's just no matter what he does, it's going to be crap. And that's not his fault.
Right.
You know, that's what I'm going back with the reader's expectations. At this point, everyone's kind of figured out what's going to happen. So even if he remains true and is like, yeah, no, this is what happens, people are going to be like, oh, that's what happened in the show. I don't care anymore. I'm like, well, yeah. You know what I mean?
Although so much... Now we're just talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, sorry. It went from Animorphs to Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So much in that series, like, people didn't like how the series ended.
Yeah.
So like, what an opportunity to like do it the way you want to do it and not repeat the mistakes of the series.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many storylines that there's an opportunity to still have like the central mystery, the Jon Snowness of it all. Like, that can stay the same.
Yeah. But you can do other things.
It seems like those seeds were planted at the very beginning and have grown. So I think his storyline probably has to stay somewhat the same, but like everything happening around him, like there's so much opportunity for that to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. There's tons of stuff that they didn't even address in the show that were happening in the series. They could just be like, okay, well, let's lean more on this other interesting thing happening. And it would still be cool. Right. But yeah, he's not going to finish it.
My fingers are crossed for you and for my husband who loves that series.
Yeah. Well, the last book came out like 15 years ago.
It might just be that we have to wait until he dies and then somebody finds his notes.
Yeah, I think.
And then the publisher finally gets to use a ghostwriter to finish things up and put it out in the world.
This sounds bad. And
Brandon Sanderson, are you ready to finish another series?
Exactly. Like, this sounds awful and I don't wish death on anyone. But my hope is that he has a long, happy life. But when he does pass, it gets the torch gets passed over to somebody who does finish it, and it's amazing. Because I think at that point the expectation won't be as much because he's gone. It'll be a different person. So then I'm like, we know what happens. It's my hope.
Yeah. Well, speaking of authors and finishing series, you're an author.
Yeah.
You've written series.
I have.
What's your approach to writing a series? Do you know and I think I know the answer to this because we do a podcast where we talk about your writing style. Do you have an idea how a series is going to end when you begin it?
No.
Yep. Okay.
I have, I think, a vague idea of what I want, but it often changes by the time I get there.
Sure.
So I think the only one that stayed consistent is the end of Wild Contracts. I knew how I was going to end that. And that was I started with the ending and worked backwards.
Okay.
Relic, I had no fucking idea. So I was like, I know eventually. Actually, I didn't even.
Well, technically, the story isn't done.
Well, Relic is Relic, like the core Relic cast, done. Mm-hmm. So it's actually been kind of fun to write from Origin's point of view because their entire point is they don't have one anymore. Like their core mission statement's gone. So now I have to like come up with a new MacGuffin for the entire crew. But with Relic, I didn't even know that I was going to get to the point where they figured out the whole DNA thing in Gardens and Ghosts.
Right.
That when I was writing Smash and Grab, that wasn't a thing. I didn't come up with even a vague concept of that until Lost in Amber. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can actually do something with this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, no, not at all. But yeah, so I applaud the people who have a solid ending and then can jump for that instead of just being like, I'll figure it out, which is usually what I do.
Yeah. You know, when I was on the Rainbow Readers Cruise, I had a reader ask me an interesting question, which is if I'm narrating a series and it's the first book, do I want to learn from the author how they intend to finish the series?
Ooh.
Like, would that help me with the narration?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting question because, first of all, we don't get that kind of insight.
Yeah.
I don't think they would ever offer us that. But if they were to offer it, I think I would probably say no.
Really?
Because, well, my job is to be the avatar for the reader.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like, well, if the reader doesn't know by the end of the book certain information, then I don't want to know it.
Yeah.
You know, unless you have to tell me something that will make certain things make sense in future books, which we do always ask.
Sure.
So yeah, as a narrator, when approaching a series, we do always ask things like, you know, who of these people are going to show up in major ways in future things? Is there like a big bad that we need to know about from, you know, who we wouldn't expect? Like, you got to tell us at least the broad strokes of things that might affect the performance in book one. But if it doesn't affect the performance, then no, I don't want to know.
Yeah. Well, and also
let me experience. Yeah. I mean, so much of the spontaneity of narration is taken away already because you have to know enough about the book to narrate it.
Right.
I was like, don't tell me how the whole series ends.
Yeah.
I have to get through this whole thing. Yeah. And there has to be some joy in discovering.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, from book to book. I can't, you know, from the very beginning know how the whole damn thing is going to end.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, well, that
kind of takes away the fun.
Like now I have to narrate 7 books and I already know how the whole thing ends. Like over the course of 3,
progressively
4
more
years,
bored.
You know,
yeah,
like
for sure.
So yeah, no, I'd never been asked that question. I thought it was very interesting.
That is a cool question. Yeah,
because certainly there's a lot of things you have to keep track of when you are writing or narrating a series.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems like authors do more fancy-free approach to keeping track of characters and attributes than narrators do.
Yep. 100%.
Sometimes I'm like, really? What color are his eyes?
I was going to say the eyes thing.
My notes say a different color.
Yep. Yep. I had to go back and retcon.
What was his sister's name?
Yeah.
How many sisters does he have now?
Is she going by her middle name here? Like, yeah exactly. Yeah. No, I had to go back in and change Dallas's eye color because in this short story that I started him with, it was brown. And then I forgot. And they were blue for like 2 books. And I was like, shit. Whoops. So yeah, just, I don't know. I'm sorry on behalf of all of us that our attention spans are poop. We just can't remember.
But I guess, see, that's the thing about, again, just different approaches for different people.
Yeah.
Like I have spreadsheets on spreadsheets just for directing this musical.
Yeah.
Like I spreadsheet out all of that information when I'm narrating a series. So if I were to write a book, like I know I would have spreadsheets where all that information, like I would have that like in an Airtable where I can like look up very easily any information I need.
Yeah. You would have no continuity problems in your book.
Absolutely not. No, because that would be worked out before the actual writing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That's actually the thing I probably should work on instead of I need to figure out my system before I could actually do the writing if
it's
I were to ever write
bad way to
something,
go, honestly.
Is work on my work on my my supporting materials.
Yeah.
Because that's where I thrive is those spreadsheets and databases.
Well, if you get it all figured out, then you can just jump in and be really ready to go because you have all your notes compiled. So it's not a bad thing.
I just have to finish directing this musical.
Yeah, one big ass project at a time, maybe.
Yeah, there's always something.
Yeah.
Something else that's coming up.
That's fair.
Yeah. Have you ever been really invested in a series and then just decided, the way this is going, I give up. I'm just not going to finish it.
I don't know if I've ever cold stopped a series. That was because of the series and not just because I got distracted. Because I've done that where I'm like, I'll be so into a series and then I'll be like, I'll download the second book and then never get to it.
Right.
No, I don't think I've...
Well, and even like second book, it's like, well, okay, so it didn't grab my attention enough to like compel me to go back to it.
You know
even
what?
if I bought it. But like 2 or 3 books in.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
I did have one series that I liked, that in the second or third book, they did like a whole amnesia plot line. I was like, why are we doing this? I'm not a fan of those. Like, they have to be done very well, and this one just wasn't. I was like, oh, is this going to stick around? Cool. And like by the end of the book, like his memory snaps back or something. And I was like, okay, what was the point of this? You know what I mean? So that one, I think it took me a minute to get back into the series because I was just like, are you going to do this again? Or are we going to do like weird, goofy storylines that I'm not super into? And it eventually got better. But yeah, that book, it definitely rocked me because I was like, this is stupid. So I was not a fan. But,
no.
So I think that was the only one but I did not finish it. I just had to give it a lot of side eye and judgment before I picked up the next one in the series.
Yeah. Strangely enough, so one of the examples I think of a really great series is Green Creek, which obviously I say with all the bias that comes with having narrated it.
Oh, of course.
But I mean, talk about compelling characters.
Yes.
Talk about like every book ended in a way that made me want to know what happens next. Yeah. There was always that story to tell, even though he wrote the first book without it intending to be a 4-book series.
Yeah.
So he wrote Wolfsong and then came up with a series that would last the next 3 books. Like he had that all plotted out.
Yeah.
Which I think sometimes can be the kiss of death, which is going to be the example I'm going to use from the very same author.
Really?
I never finished Tales from Verania or Tales of Verania.
You know what? I don't think I did either. And I loved that book. Had me howling. I have that one signed.
It was so fun. I love the characters, but I still have it. I can always go back and finish it. I have never felt compelled to go and finish that 4th book. Because it felt to me like the first book was its own contained story.
Yeah.
And then there was the expanded world to tell this extra story. And I lost interest. It felt like, yes, this is something that was written because it was quite popular and people called for it. And I believe that TJ had a story to tell.
Yeah.
But it never captured me the same way. And I have yet to finish that series. And I think it's 4 books and I finished 3 of them.
Yeah. I need to pick it back up.
I just think I never went back.
Yeah.
So.
I think you're right. For me, the first book was just it was good. I didn't want any more. I was I was happy. It was just such a well-contained thing. Everything was wrapped up. Well, there were a couple like tiny threads that they could like continue on, but for the most part, the meat of the story was done.
Yeah.
Happily ever after. Great ending. I was so happy. So yeah, the drive to continue reading it, I was like, I kind of don't want to mess up this perfect little bubble. So yeah, it's a good point. If the first book is so wrapped up and wonderful and then it expands afterwards, sometimes that can be a harder sell.
Right.
You're like, I don't want them to be sad.
Well, and I may be misremembering, but to me also, and spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read Green Creek or Tales from Verania, I don't know who you would be if you're listening to this podcast. But to me, like one of the other things that made Green Creek so effective, and this has been true of other books as well, and maybe part of the reason why Animorphs isn't working for me at a certain point, is in Green Creek, you lost people along the way. So the stakes always felt high.
Yes.
Versus in Tales from Verena, I feel like we never really lose any of the core cast or their like immediate connected family or characters. So maybe that's where like the stakes of it just felt like, well, they're all going to make it to the end.
Yeah, I think that the Tales series is a little bit more fun and it just wasn't meant to have high stakes. Right. So...
And with Animorphs, it's like, well, they're all going to make it to the last
Of course
book. I don't know that they'll survive the series, but they're all going to make it to the last
Honestly,
book.
If they killed off one kid, this whole series would be a gold star for me. Right. Which, out of context, makes me sound like a monster.
Right.
But, like, if like, well, I don't want to say Tobias because he's my favorite, but, like, if Marco just died, then I'd be like, oh, my God, they're not playing. Like, at what point are we going to lose Jake? You know, there's something like that. So, yeah.
It's the stakes of Green Creek always felt very real to me. And even, like, as the narrator going into books 3 and book 4, I was like, any one of these people could go at any point in time. There's no
one's safe.
No one is sacrosanct. Yeah. Not even like Joe and Ox.
Nope.
I was like, one of them could die by the end of this series.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
Right. Exactly.
So that's another, like, it keeps you going when you feel like the stakes are high.
Yeah.
So we could talk about this forever, but
it's a good topic. I feel like we really could just be like, and another thing.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you guys. What makes a really good series? What some of your favorite series have been? Have you DNF'd a series after originally being really into it and then just kind of let it fizzle because it lost you?
Yeah.
What are your examples? We want to hear from you. You can reach out to us through social media, or if you're in our Patreon, you can comment on this episode, as so many of you are good at doing, and we love seeing those comments come through. If you are not already connected to us, you can visit hoofandfangpodcast.com, where you can find all of our social media links, as well as the link to our Patreon, where you can join at $5 a month or $10 a month if you also want to get our monthly audiobook episodes. And that is all we have for you guys this week, but we will be back next week.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.